When I was a junior in high school, I experienced my first real relationship. His name was Mike, and he was a senior at another high school in the neighboring town. We first connected through Facebook. He sent me a message one day, and we started chatting from there. After talking for a while, we began hanging out and showing up at each other's games. I would attend his football games, and he would come watch my softball games. After a few weeks of spending time together, we officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. Since we were still in high school, though, our dates were nothing like the typical dinners or nights out that adults go on. We were just teenagers. Most of the time, our dates meant grabbing burritos, driving around town, or spending time at his house. My parents were usually home at my place, which made things awkward if we wanted any privacy. If I had to describe Mike, I would say he had a short temper. He was a big guy for someone who was only 17, which was part of the reason he played football. Surprisingly, he did not really spend time with the jocks. He told me he mostly hung out with the stoner crowd and a mix of regular students. Since we went to different schools, I never actually saw who he spent time with during the day. I also did not meet many of his friends. Most of the time, it was just the two of us hanging out rather than doing things with groups. Because he lived in another town and I could not drive yet, it sometimes became frustrating to make plans. On top of that, I started developing feelings for another boy at my own school named Andrew, who was in my grade. Around that same time, I began losing interest in Mike. I wanted to see where things might go with Andrew. So one evening when Mike asked if we could hang out, I asked him to pick me up because I wanted to talk. The moment I said that, he seemed to know something was wrong. After he picked me up, we went for a drive. I told him that I thought we should take a break. He refused to believe I was serious and demanded to know what he had done wrong. When I explained that I just felt the spark between us was gone, he became so angry that he punched his dashboard, leaving a noticeable dent in it. He started shouting, which scared me. I reached for the door because I wanted to get out of the car, but he stopped me and placed his hand on my shoulder, saying no several times. Then he told me he was just upset and that he would take me home. He put the car back in drive and started moving again. As we continued driving, he grew even angrier, repeatedly asking me what exactly he had done wrong. At one point, he began blowing through stop signs. That was when I noticed we were not even heading toward my house. I asked him to pull over and let me out, but he yelled no. We were getting closer to a wooded area, and that was when fear really started to set in. I had never seen him act like this before. It felt like I was suddenly seeing a completely different person. Eventually, he stopped the car along a quiet road, and I quickly got out. He yelled for me to come back, but I ignored him. I called my mom, and she came to pick me up. Later that night, Mike sent me a long apology through text. I never responded. 2 nights later, I left my house to walk to Andrew's place. We had made plans to hang out, and he lived only 2 blocks away from me. While walking there, I noticed someone across the street, a short distance behind me, moving at almost the same pace. The person was wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled up, so I could not see their face. People did walk through our neighborhood sometimes, so at first it was not extremely unusual. But the closer I got to Andrew's house, the closer that person seemed to get. As I continued down the street and glanced back again, I noticed the person had crossed over and was now walking on the same side of the street as me. My heart immediately started pounding. I began walking faster. According to the map on my phone, Andrew's house was just coming up on the right side. I quickly sent him a message asking him to come outside because I thought someone might be following me. He replied saying okay. A moment later, I turned again after hearing the sound of shoes hitting the sidewalk behind me at a run. When I looked back, I saw the figure in the black hoodie sprinting straight toward me. I screamed and ran as fast as I could. After about 5 seconds, I saw Andrew step outside his house, looking confused about what was happening. I turned around once more and saw the person in black running the other way down the street. I keep referring to the person as the guy in black, but deep down I knew it was Mike. From what I could see, the height and build were identical to his. After that night, there were several more strange incidents. I started receiving phone calls with no caller ID. On more than one occasion, I saw Mike's car parked outside my parents' house late at night. My parents quickly became aware of everything that was happening. One day my dad drove us to Mike's house. I stayed in the car while he walked up and knocked on their door. He had a long and very loud conversation with Mike's parents. I rolled the window down so I could hear. The main thing I remember my dad shouting was that he did not care how old Mike was, that this was still harassment. He also said that if Mike tried contacting me again in any way, we would involve the police. After that, the calls and sightings stopped. Mike never tried to contact me again. For anyone curious, Andrew and I ended up dating for about a year. Looking back, my relationship with Mike taught me an important early lesson in life about paying attention to red flags. I have had 3 girlfriends in my life so far. One is my current girlfriend, who I have been happily with for the past 3 years. The first was someone I dated in college. The second was a girl named Kelly. Kelly was the one who put me through some of the worst emotional stress I have ever experienced, and at times it even turned physical. The story really begins when Kelly and I matched on Bumble. We quickly realized we both went to the same college, which made starting conversations easy. We talked about classes, campus life, and people we might both know. After about a month of seeing each other regularly, we decided to make the relationship official. In total, we dated for roughly 6 months. At the beginning, everything seemed perfectly normal. We got along well and enjoyed spending time together. Like many new relationships, it felt exciting and easy. However, after a few months that feeling started to fade. Kelly began showing signs of being extremely controlling and obsessive. She constantly wanted to know where I was and what I was doing every moment of the day. As time went on, I also noticed she did not really have many friends, maybe 1 or 2 at most. Because of that, whenever I spent time with my own friends on weekends, she became very upset. She would text me nonstop, sometimes every 15 minutes, demanding proof of where I was. If I happened to go to a bar without her, it would immediately turn into a huge argument. Eventually, she insisted that I share my location with her. That happened around 4 or 5 months into the relationship. By that point, the situation was becoming unbearable. She had so much free time that she focused almost all of it on monitoring what I was doing. It felt like I was constantly being interrogated just for trying to spend time with friends. Then one night things escalated far beyond anything that had happened before. I had started the evening drinking at my friend Kevin's house with a few of our buddies. The plan had never been to go out afterward, but as the night went on, we ended up heading to a bar. By the time the night was over, I was extremely drunk. When I finally got home, I immediately noticed Kelly standing outside my mom's house waiting for me. The look on her face was intense and angry. Before I even had time to say anything, she started yelling and accusing me of cheating. Then she began hitting me repeatedly while shouting insults and causing a huge scene outside where the neighbors could easily hear everything. I eventually grabbed her arms just to stop her from hitting me. The moment I did that, she began yelling for me to get off her and threatened to call the police. Not wanting the situation to get worse, I let go immediately and told her that we were finished. That moment was when I officially ended the relationship. Her reaction was exactly what you might expect from someone who had already been acting unstable. For weeks afterward, I received long text messages from her every single day. Some were angry, some claimed she regretted everything, and others switched right back to being furious. Eventually, I decided the best thing I could do was block her completely, so I would not have to deal with it anymore. Unfortunately, that still was not the end of the situation. One of my friends still followed Kelly on Instagram. One day he sent me a screenshot of a photo she posted. In the picture, she was standing next to a very large muscular guy who looked intimidating and angry, even in the photo. I joked to my friend that it looked like she had upgraded. What happened next was something I never expected. One night I was home alone at my parents' house, lying in bed and relaxing. Everything felt quiet and normal. Suddenly, I heard someone violently pounding on the front door downstairs. I jumped out of bed and walked into the living room to listen more carefully. From outside, I heard a man's voice screaming at the door, shouting for me to open it and calling me a coward. I stayed silent because I did not want whoever it was to know I was home. A moment later, my phone started ringing from a number I did not recognize. When I ignored the call, a text message arrived. The message threatened to kill me if I did not open the door before he broke a window. Instead of responding, I called 911. While I was speaking to the dispatcher, I suddenly heard glass shatter outside. I looked through the window and saw a large bearded man standing near my SUV smashing the windows. I immediately recognized him as the same guy from the photo Kelly had posted. While still on the phone with emergency services, I explained that my former girlfriend had apparently sent her current boyfriend to my house and that he was now threatening me and damaging my vehicle. The dispatcher asked several questions while police were already on their way. Meanwhile, the man outside continued screaming threats and pounding on my door while sending more texts. The police arrived surprisingly fast, which was a huge relief. They pulled up while the guy was still standing in front of my house. As soon as he noticed the police car, he stepped down from the front steps. I went outside right away and showed the officers the broken windows on my car, along with the threatening text messages. Even while the officers were placing him in handcuffs, the guy kept yelling that I would pay for talking trash about him to Kelly. I told him I had not spoken to Kelly in months. He shouted back asking about the texts and accused me of lying. I had no idea what texts he was talking about. After he was taken away in one of the patrol cars, the other officers stayed behind to gather information about the situation between Kelly and me. After hearing everything, he told me that I had a strong case for harassment and strongly recommended filing for a restraining order. He advised me to visit the police station the next day to begin the process, which I did. Before that, though, I decided to unblock Kelly long enough to ask her what she had told her new boyfriend and why he showed up at my house. She replied claiming she had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. I then sent her a long message explaining exactly what had happened and telling her that I was filing for a restraining order against both of them. I also told her she seriously needed professional help. After that message, I never heard from Kelly again. According to my friend, the picture she had posted with the guy disappeared from her Instagram the very next day. His name was Javier Cruz, and both he and Kelly are now included in the restraining order I currently have. That entire experience taught me one very important lesson. You really have to be careful about who you choose to date, because there are a lot of unstable people out there. I was with my ex-boyfriend Kian for about 2 years. Looking back, the relationship was incredibly toxic and abusive. I went through a lot of physical and emotional pain during that time, but I was always too afraid to walk away. My mom and I live alone in a rough neighborhood, and it is the same place where I spent my entire childhood. For a young woman, walking home alone at night around here can feel dangerous. That was part of the reason I stayed with Kian longer than I should have. He was a large, intimidating guy, and when he was not treating me horribly, I felt somewhat safer having him around. But by the end of the relationship, the biggest reason I stayed was because I was terrified of how he might react if I tried to leave him. My mom never liked him. She could see right through him and always told me he was bad news. Sadly, it took me a long time to finally accept that she was right and cut ties with him. When I did end things, I chose to do it through a text message. I knew that if I tried to break up with him face to face, he might hit me or completely lose control. Even through text, he did not handle it well at all. Within seconds of sending the message, my phone started lighting up with incoming calls from him. He called over and over again, but I refused to answer because I was scared of what he might say or do. After the third or fourth call attempt, the phone stopped ringing for a few minutes. Then a message popped up. It was a long paragraph filled with insults and anger, with many of the words typed in all capital letters. I replied by telling him we could talk about it the next day, on the phone after he had time to calm down. Unsurprisingly, he immediately sent another long message. I did not even open that one right away, because I could feel myself starting to cry, and I did not want to deal with it at that moment. That night my mom was working her second job, and she was not expected to be home until around 2 in the morning. I had class the next day, so I decided to try going to sleep early, around 10. My mind kept racing, making it hard to fall asleep, but eventually I managed to drift off. Sometime during the night, I suddenly woke up to a noise coming from outside my bedroom. I looked over at the clock and saw that it was about 1 in the morning. Normally, when I woke up in the middle of the night, it was because my mom had just come home from work, so I assumed that was the case. The only thing that surprised me was that she seemed to be home much earlier than usual. I sat up in bed and noticed something sitting near the edge of the mattress. It was my cat, Nala. I got out of bed and walked into the hallway, calling my mom's name. The house was completely dark. None of the lights were on. I was sure I had heard some kind of movement in the living room area. I flipped on the living room lights, but nobody was there. I went to the front door and checked the lock, and it was still secured. Then I looked out the window toward the driveway. My mom's car was not there. At that point, I figured maybe I had just imagined the sound or heard something outside. I went back to my room, closed the door, and got back into bed. Nala was still sitting in the exact same spot on the bed, completely still. I tried to relax and go back to sleep, but then I heard another noise somewhere in the house. I rushed out to the living room again, but everything looked exactly the same as before. My mom still was not home. That was when a disturbing thought crossed my mind. Kian knew exactly where we kept the spare key in the backyard. What if he had used it to get inside? I went back to my bedroom and called my mom on my cell phone to tell her what was happening. I had already texted her earlier about breaking up with Kian, so she knew about the situation and told me she was proud of me for leaving him. She tried to reassure me and said she would be home soon and that the sounds I heard might just be normal house noises. I laid back down on my bed. Nala had not moved at all. She was still in the same position. I switched on the lamp next to my bed and reached over to pick her up. The moment I touched her, I felt my stomach drop. Her eyes were open, but they looked empty, and she was not breathing. I lifted her and realized the horrible truth. My cat was dead. I wanted to scream and cry, but I covered my mouth with my hand to stay quiet. In that moment, I became convinced that Kian was somewhere inside the house, and that he had killed my cat as a way to punish me. I quickly locked my bedroom door and called 911. I spoke as quietly as possible and told the operator that my ex-boyfriend had broken into the house and killed my cat. They instructed me to hide in the closet in my bedroom and stay there until the police arrived. I stayed on the phone with the operator while sitting in the dark closet, waiting. During that time, Kian could have easily walked out the front door, and I might never have heard it. Eventually, the operator told me the police had arrived at the house. Apparently, the front door had been unlocked because the officers were able to walk right in. That meant Kian had most likely already left. I came out of the closet and went to the living room, where 2 police officers were standing. By that point, I could not hold back my emotions anymore, and I was crying uncontrollably over Nala. The first question they asked me was where he was. I told them I thought he had already left. I showed them my cat and the angry text messages Kian had sent me earlier. My mom arrived home shortly after I called her, and when she saw Nala, she broke down crying as well. Unfortunately, the police were not very helpful. They said that without clear evidence showing that someone had broken into the house, they could not simply arrest someone based on suspicion. Nala did not have any visible wounds or stab marks, so as awful as it sounds, there was no way to prove she had been killed intentionally by Kian as revenge. The following day, my mom had all the locks in the house changed. The spare key in the backyard was still there, but Kian easily could have used it and then placed it back where it was. I blocked his phone number and removed him from every social media account I had. Everything about the situation pointed toward him being responsible. My mom and I also began the process of filing for an order of protection against him. The judge issued us a temporary order before our official court hearing. The last time I ever saw Kian was in the courtroom, where thankfully the judge decided that the protection order would remain in place. Even now, I still find myself thinking about that night and how the first time I went downstairs,